In just a moment, Stuart, just to recap what the odds makers say is going to happen. As I mentioned, Manchester City clear favourites according to them. United and Chelsea locked together as second favourites for the title. Spurs at 10-1 in fourth place. Stuart, walk us through how you think it's going to finish.
Well, I think Manchester City, with their attacking football, are going to have enough to win the title. Not by much. I'm going to go with Manchester United second. I think they're going to be much better under Mourinho this season. Arsenal are going to surprise everybody. They're not going to win the title, but they're going to come third. And then I would go to Spurs. They would just creep into that fourth position. If they were playing at White Hart Lane, I think they get in the top two, but they're at Wembley this year. And then I'm going to go for Chelsea fifth and to upset Stevie Nicol, Liverpool sixth.
You may not get any argument from Stevie, we'll see. But what about Chelsea in fifth place? That's a big shout, having them drop right out of the top four, isn't it?
Yes, I would probably switch Chelsea, and I'd switch Arsenal with Chelsea. I'm not quite sure how Stu figures Arsenal are going to be third, because I don't see them particularly strong at the back. And unless Sanchez, Ozil and Lacazette get it going together, then they might not win as many games as we think. So I don't see Arsenal in the top four.
Well, I agree with Stewie that the start of the season for Chelsea is going to be really important in terms of building momentum going forward and creating some confidence in a team that, for somebody that just won the title, it feels like there's still a whole lot of questions to answer, including Hazard. The start of the season will be important for Chelsea. The start of the season will be important for Alvaro Morata. He's got to score early on so that there is confidence in him that he can be the guy and not Diego Costa, so that we don't revert back to the conversation about Diego Costa. I still think that Chelsea and the core group of players they have is too strong to just finish to not finish in the top four.
Still with us. Let's go through some of the other main title contenders, Stuart, starting with the defending champions, Chelsea. What do you make of what's happened to them in the summer and the prognosis for them looking forward?
I think they've got one or two problems. I mean, I love Antonio Conte as a coach, but I'm looking at his team at the moment. The squad isn't big enough. They've got a problem with Hazard at the moment, who's injured. I look at the back three, and they're not playing anywhere near as well as they did last season. Fabregas, when he plays, he's an excellent passer, but defensively they can be caught out. And I can just sense from Antonio Conte's comments in the press, he's not happy with the board, with the players they've brought in. He's not happy with one or two of the players. I think this could be a very difficult season for Chelsea, a very difficult start. And if they get a poor start, I think they might not even make the top four.
Interesting. Tell you what, the bookies are unanimous. They all have the favourites clearly as being Manchester City this year, Stuart. Why? What have they done in the off-season to produce that?
Well, I think Guardiola is going to go about his job. He's going to make sure that he wants to win the title with his philosophy. Forget buying Walker and Mendy as defensive players. He wants them to be attacking wing-backs. He's got a lot of attacking players. And when I've looked at the different lineups he can play, they're not going to be a defensive team. They're going to try and blow teams away with attacking football, which I think they will do for most of the time. There's just one or two issues defensively. Has he got a contingency if they don't play their passing game very well and they don't attack well? But I still think they'll have enough to win the title with their attacking play.
Pep Guardiola, second season in charge. Can he deliver the silverware? Can Arsene Wenger get back to delivering titles for Arsenal? Is that a step too far for this Arsenal squad, Stuart?
There's a much better feeling around Arsenal at the moment. Arsene Wenger looks like he's the cat that's got the cream at the moment. He's got the 2-year contract. He's fought off the fans that didn't want him there, fought off the pundits that didn't want him there. And I can just sense that formation that they're playing at the moment, the 4-3, it suits some of their players. Whether it be Sanchez and Ozil, whether Sanchez still stays, or would it be Welbeck or Iwobi, those players will find space in behind the opposition's midfield, and their wing-backs will get joy down the outside. I think they look a much better side. There's a lot of talk about Lacazette, but the player that's really impressed me over the pre-season has been Kolasinac. He's been excellent as the left-sided centre-half. I think they'll come third.
Stuart, what about the team that have actually garnered more Premier League points in the last 2 seasons than any other side, but they haven't won the title yet? Spurs. Is this the year?
Yeah, I mean...
there's a blank key signings, by the way, we're looking at, Stuart. We're looking at their key signings and we have a blank screen.
Well, in some ways, they've got the continuity, so that's a good thing. They know exactly how the manager wants to play his football. You know, but the problem they've got this season is that they're playing at Wembley, and they haven't had a great record at Wembley, and they've still got the problem of Harry Kane, a magnificent player, and when he's fit and playing well, they're going to win a lot of football games. But because he's going to be the only striker, they can't buy anybody to be the number 2 unless Pochettino at some point changes his tactics and plays with 2 up front. And then he can go and buy another striker. So if Kane does get fit, they can then revert back to 1 up front and play Eriksen and Dele Alli in a wider position. But that 3 up front, I think, is going to be excellent for Spurs. But I can just see them not doing quite as well as they have done the last 2 seasons.
Now, what about relegation? This is what the odds makers tell us in terms of who could be plunging through that trapdoor. Huddersfield have just come up for their first season in English top flight, favourites to go straight back down again. Burnley, they say, will be joining. And another promoted club, Brighton, rounding out the favourites. Watford, Swansea and Newcastle, the third promoted side, also in the picture. Stuart, let's bring you back in on this. If you had to pick 3 who'll be plying their trade in the Championship, who would you go for?
Well, the first one would be Huddersfield. I saw them play in the Championship playoff final. It was one of the worst games I've seen. Yes, they've made a lot of signings. I think the manager's a decent coach. But they're not signings that you're going to say they're going to keep Huddersfield up. I think they could be bottom by quite some way. So they're the first team I'm going to talk about. Brighton, I think Chris Hughton's an excellent manager. They did well last year, but the last time he was up in the Premier League with Norwich, he was a little bit too defensive. They didn't go and win enough games. The crowd got on to him. I think he might learn from that, but I still think Brighton will be one of the relegation teams. And Swansea. They were always going to have a little run after Bob Bradley was there because the players didn't seem to react to him, the crowd didn't react to him. So when Clement came in, they were going to have that little bit of a spurt. I think they were lucky to avoid relegation last year. But this time round, particularly if they lose Sigurdsson, I think Swansea will be the other side to join those 2 that have come up from the Championship.
You know what's interesting?
I know you're a relegation expert.
No, it's Stewie. Stewie, you know, Chris Hughton, he's a heck of a manager, but he's going down. I mean, you know, I mean, I love you, but I don't think so. It's not going to work out. Look, relegation, I understand it's a big deal in the Premier League.
Right. It is.
But and I know, but it's impossible to ignore that the money that's involved makes a whole lot of sense to have this sort of discussions. But we're talking about potentially the 3 worst teams over the course of a whole season. It's difficult to stay away from the teams that have come up just now, other than Newcastle.
You sometimes get more variety in these picks than you do in who's going to win the title, because you could make a case, couldn't you, Steve? A lot of teams could go down.
Well, tell you, it's really hard to make a case for Huddersfield and Brighton to stay up. Let's be honest.
Well, you never...
Good coaches, yes, but at the end of the day, you need players.
People said that about Burnley last year, though, didn't they?
Well, and I'm going to go with the bookies because I think Burnley will go down this year.
Yeah.
Again, they've got a good coach, but the players... Burnley cannot think that they're just going to win at home every time they play there, and then they can just lose away from home. That's going to run out, and I think this year it runs out. I don't see how they can win too many games away from home. The way they set up, they're never going to win a lot. And then, as I said, at home, it just can't last.
What about Swansea City? Because they're the one non-promoted team that Stuart picked to go down. They had the great escape last year.
No, I think they've got enough.
You do?
I was a little surprised that they finished up so close to the relegation. You know, because at times they played some great football and won some games, and you thought, okay, they'll go on a run, and then they would collapse for 5 or 6 weeks, and then they would win another 2 or 3 and do the same. I think you'll see a different ball game this year. I think they'll be a lot more consistent. I don't see them in too much trouble.
What I'll tell you, though, is that list of teams that we just saw, those are some bad teams.
Yes,
those are some awful teams.
You could
I mean, come on now.
Every sign that Philippe Coutinho could be departing Anfield for Barcelona. How big a blow, how devastating might this be to Jurgen Klopp's plans for the season?
I think it's a massive blow because they've got Mane, who's an excellent player. Salah, I think, is an excellent player. We're talking about Firmino. They're all good counter-attacking players. When the opposition are trying to press them high up the field and when they're on the attack, and Liverpool can then counter-attack. When teams drop deep, you need a player that can pick passes out, can go past someone and get shots away. Philippe Coutinho is that player. He's been excellent over the last couple of years at coming in from that left-hand side and getting shots away. And I think without that creativity, Liverpool will have the same problems they had on many occasions last year. They won't be able to break down some of the more defensive sides that come to Anfield.
So if they have to do without the little magician, if he does a disappearing act, what's the prognosis for Liverpool this season?
Well, I think they will struggle. I think they have to get another player that would give them the similar sort of effectiveness. There's a player that can go past people, that is good on the ball. You can't just have runners. You need a plan B at some time. And Liverpool have got a lot of runners, a lot of people that are good off the ball, but they need a player that can actually create. And he's the main player for that. So if they don't have him in the side, they need to get someone who's very similar.
Stevie? He's not saying anything.
Speechless.
Until it's done, you are
Speechless.
not going to react, are you?
No.
Until it's done.
No, hey. Until he goes, I'll keep my mouth shut now. But when he stays, there'll be a whole lot of loving going
There'll
on.
be a lot of transfer talk, yeah, that's for sure.